We're going live in Guatemala Global in English, and the first time we're going live in Guatemala Global in YouTube. Yeah, I was banned from Facebook, 13,000 fans, and some bot detected something on a community forum I created who was selling medicine to help people avoid seizures, and it was considered a pharmaceutical, and therefore I was banned. Because obviously there were many of these postings. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is we're live in Guatemala Global. It's the first time in English, and it's about time that I explain what exactly this is. Well, this is a daily VlogCast where I go over the tweets I've retweeted, and I explain a little bit of what I think about them. And the idea behind it is to connect, to have a little Guatemala reach you through my experience, but also open the door for you to share with me and let me know what you think is going on in relation to this wonderful place in the world called Guatemala that right now is missing you out there because there's no tourism, and we live from tourism, and we want to connect. So if you want to join Guatemala, well, join Guatemala Global Daily Vlogcast. This is the first time we do it. I'm super psyched about doing it. There's no concurrent viewers, there's no likes. The previous one, the Spanish VlogCast, which already has 25 episodes, was terrible because I had no idea how the sound worked, so the background music is terrible there. I hope this time I got it right. But let's jump into the news, and welcome to the first edition of Guatemala Global Daily Vlogcast in English. Here we go. So let's start with the news. The New Yorker published that 20% of cases from COVID-19 up to April in Guatemala had come from migrants who had been deported from the U.S. and brought into Guatemala. And my general conclusion on that matter was, from a Guatemalan perspective, we have to honor and take Guatemalans anywhere who want to go back to their country. This is their most basic right in terms of cooperating with other people. You know, who you are, who defends you, where are you from? And dignifies people. So I'm really happy Guatemala opened the doors and didn't try to push migrants back who were being deported from the U.S. As to the general politics that brought these guys here from the U.S., the only thing I can say is that, if somebody enters your country illegally, then you are kind of in the obligation to sustain it. The other thing is, well, why is it so hard to enter the country illegally, right? So these are things that have to do outside of Guatemalan matters. So I will just continue with Guatemalan matters. But if you want to have your share of ideas or things that you want to speak about in relation to the United States position on sending migrants with COVID-19 down to Guate on plane loads, well, you're welcome to. Part of Guatemala Global's ideals are to be able to exchange ideas no matter if they're conflicting or not. That means that if you think something is different from the way I think about it, we don't want to argue. We kind of open ourselves to listen to the other person, and also to the possibility that I might be wrong, or that I might learn something. And this is a very powerful thing, because once you learn something, you can't unlearn it, and some things can change the way you see the world. So what a wonderful thing to start out with in the Guatemalan Global Podcast in English, to talk about something that was published in the New Yorker. What are your thoughts? Please leave them by. By the way, all of the things that I'm publishing are saved in my Twitter account. This is twitter.com/Guatemala Global. So if you want to look at sources or have your share of conversation there, I'll be happy to interact with you and find truths, as long as it's respectful and as long as it's a sincere search for truth. By the way, this is so funny. This is the second tweet I'm sharing with you, and I just found it hilarious. Social distancing. If I can turn around and punch you in the face, you're too effing close. And that's the kind of American thinking I've always admired, and the simplistic means that it can transmit such a powerful message. Brevity. That is the secret to communication. Another comment. This was based on a few arguments that I had been reading around, and it's there's two groups here right now fighting in Guatemala, or not fighting, but there's two arguments. The one argument is, look, we're about to destroy the economy if we don't open things up, and the other argument is, how can you value the economy over people's lives? Well, I think that the general sense, and what should clear everybody's mind when it comes to this, is that the primary objective is people's lives. And the fact that people are worried about the economy is because the economy helps support people's lives. The solution that I've been talking about over the last few shows is that we need to enable economic interaction without viral transmission, and there are plenty of ways to do it. It's very interesting to see how suddenly, in the last couple of years and in the last couple of months, a lot more, there has been a bunch of online platforms, kind of like PayPal, but built in through financial technology suppliers for banks. This is the fintech area. There's a lot of banks, Banco Industrial, Banco Credomatic, I think it's Promérica too. Anyways, local banks have opened up marketplaces to enable the interaction of goods, and a few others have enabled the purchase of coupons to help the economy. So you want to buy from these stores, you don't know what you want to buy, but you want to keep them open so you can just buy things like that. Comprale a Guate, which means buyfromguate.com, is one that comes to mind right now, but there are a few others that you should check out. So, it's really easy to say, I'm an employee and you should keep paying me and I shouldn't go to work because life is more important. And if I'm a business owner, it's really easy to say, hey, economy is more important because it'll keep people alive. So, defend the economy. Don't worry about not getting infected. The infection rate is so much and the death rate is so much, and they start going and trying to compare human lives versus economics. And my conclusion is no. We have a challenge right now, and the challenge is to enable economic transactions without enabling viral transmission. And if we can, and the more creative we can get around this, the better. For example, on the previous show, we were talking about tourism and ecotourism, how going to a Yellowstone Park, just you and your family, could be a great way of sustaining certain form of tourism without violating social distancing laws or recommendations, depending on what part of the world you're standing on and who is winning the argument. Where one way or another, just closing back to the idea, is enable economic transaction, disable viral transmission. These other two comments are not really that important to get into it, but it's important to open our eyes to what's happening around our neighboring countries, the southern part of Mexico, the western part of Honduras, and the western part of El Salvador. And of course, we have direct communication to pretty much any port in the world because we're communicated on one side with the Pacific and the other side with the Atlantic. And it takes us about 5 hours to cross the continent. I mean, to go from the Atlantic to Pacific on a car, on chicken bus roads in Guatemala. So, we're pretty privileged in that sense. So we have to be aware that the fact that we are so close to the rest of the world in terms of being an international country is going to necessarily require us to be open to what's happening in the politics and socioeconomic phenomena that's happening around the countries there. So in that respect, the message that I got, or the idea that said, is, hey, we should subscribe to newspapers around from other countries around Guatemala to have a better idea of what to expect, to have a bigger vision of where we're going and where we're coming from and where we're going. I talked about this before. By the way, this is the Guatemalan word of the day, pupuso. What does pupuso mean, huh? Well, pupuso means kind of chubby, plump subject. So I thought it was kind of mediocre. Pupuso was the American equivalent of but maybe not. Maybe not. According to the World Meaning Dictionary, it means chubby. So who is getting chubby with who's getting pupuso? By the way, this tweet is not available for. Oh, there we go. The countries in Guatemala are informing people of when their employees are testing positive for COVID and then telling people what they've done. So I have to figure out, I wanted to congratulate the companies that are applying the rules because it's really easy to ignore them, and telling the public where they've where their employees have tested positive. Also, I wanted to add that it's a good thing because for the company, because it shows integrity. It shows that the company is willing to uh, take a social hit, or actually just take a brave social stance in solidarity and with the best intent in mind for the other Guatemalans. Russia Today retweeted an artist I was mesmerized by. It is a great source of learning and a great source of inspiration. She can only draw with her feet, and it's her. It's amazing the quality that she's managed through that. So, if she can do this amazing things, what can't we do? She's a guide, an example, and something that should keep us motivated. CNN published something really funny, and it seems that pajamas are going up. Pajama purchases have gone up 143%. You can read the entire article. The link is on my Twitter stream, guatemalaglobal.com, and twitter.com/guatemalaglobal. One of the things that I found most promising this week in terms of organizing Guatemalans to survive the economic recession as best possible comes from the possibility of it comes from a vlog. It's not a vlogcast. It's a webinar. Sorry, that's going to happen this week. And in the webinar, the president of the Chamber of Industry of Guatemala, the Minister of Finance, and an economic analyst will start looking at opportunities, proposals, and difficulties that COVID-19 is presenting. So the hashtag is Rescatemos la Economía, which means let's rescue the economy. Hashtag rescue the economy. A guy I kind of follow a lot and has been a kind of an inspiration in a way. I'm still trying to figure out why. Is Joe Rogan. Of course, a lot of you know about them, and I wanted to share this old podcast of him. He is talking to a geologist who is presenting a lifelong amount of research, explaining and changing what at least changed me in my perspective of geological history and climate change. It's not against or for climate change, but it shows that Earth is very vulnerable to cosmic events, and that there's a history of these cosmic events registered in our soil, and it teaches us a lot. He also explains a bit of how the job of research, or the exercise of research and discovering or validating hypotheses that come from surreal scenarios can be mixed up with the illusion of having a science book that tells you what things are. And the great contrast is the new conclusions based on new evidence, and how these completely change what a lot of people declared as truths in geology books, academic geology books in the past. So that's really cool. I really like that show, and I want to share it with you, and it opened up to a bunch of others. I'm going to be sharing some of the most memorable Joe Rogan shows, and I hope you can see them, and I hope that you don't follow him already. Really cool guy. Definitely a lot of inspiration. Is inspiring a lot of people. This is a graph of what's happening in El Salvador. It's immediately beside us, and essentially, we're about to get really... Numbers are about to go high up. That is the general expectation of most everybody in this region right now in terms of COVID-19. So this is in El Salvador. There's there are similar spikes in other parts of the country, and other news outlets throughout Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and the southern part of Mexico, and they're all kind of saying the same thing. Cases are going up. I think I seem to have misplaced my bitstream for some reason. There we go. Local dog is missing. This is more for the Spanish crowd who's living around here, but in case you live in Guatemala, this little puppy was lost in 26th Street and 5th Avenue in Zone 3. And if you see him, you can go look for Mascotas Perdidas GT 502, and you will find the person who has a contact to get this puppy rescued. I love the fact that there's so much sharing when it comes to helping others in Guatemala. Guatemala still thinks of itself as a small town, even though it's already, I think, 15 million people living in Guatemala. I forget. But there was a really important census that happened last year in Guatemala that has the most accurate data to date in the region, and it's really well done. It has a lot of information that should serve as base for business intelligence, especially after this tsunami of economic downfall that we're living right now. There's going to be a lot of change, and so the census is really important. Finally, I would like to share, just congratulate some guys in Shela up in Quetzaltenango who are pretty much opening their own organized food table. It's called the community cook pot, the community pot, and that's a great thing you're doing, guys. Really happy, and I really admire that you're doing this. This needs to be celebrated. This is fantastic. Congratulations, guys. Do more of this. This is in Shela. Just, people helping people, man. That's what we got to do. And that's the general message in Guatemala Global. Be yourself. Don't pretend. Don't worry about doing things twice, 3 times. This is the first time I'm doing this. I'm sure it's a shitty podcast, but it's the first time I do it on YouTube. It's the first time I try the platform. And I really hope you liked it. And I really hope you follow me so you can give me a chance of showing you improvements. And also, starting, I want to do this every day. I might not be able to, but it is, for me personally, a source of pleasure and a way to feel connected with the world right now. So thank you very much, and blessings to all, and have a great time. This is the Guatemala Global Daily VlogCast in English.